What's going on, everybody? Kalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks for the TCL 30Z that you might not know about. Now before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my full review and beginner's guide for it as well. But with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing I want to show you is how to show and hide your battery percentage on the status bar. As you can see right now, by default, the battery percentage is actually inside the icon, which I personally think is really cool. But there are also some other options. So to get to this, we're going to go to Settings. From here, we're going to go to what's called Smart Manager. So right here, from this menu, go to Battery Detail. And as you can see, the battery percentage option is right here. So again, by default, the battery percentage is going to show inside the battery icon. If you want, you can also have it show next to the icon, so like that, or you can hide it altogether. Now while we're on the subject of the battery, one other thing I want to show you is the battery saver. Now if we go back to the main battery menu, you're going to see two different options here. First of all, we got normal saving mode. So if we turn this on, this is basically going to put the phone in dark mode, and it's also going to limit a few other background functions to conserve power. Now if we go to super saving mode, essentially it's going to turn the UI into a completely black screen with pretty much nothing on it, and this is going to give you the maximum battery life. Now keep in mind, neither of these features are something you want to use unless you really need to, because both of them, while saving a lot of power, are also going to severely limit your phone's performance, and seeing that this phone is not very fast to begin with, this is definitely not something you want. But that being said, if your phone is dying, maybe it's below 20% or something like that, and you really need to conserve battery until you can get to a charger, then these features are definitely nice to have. The next thing I'm going to show you is some settings you can change for your status bar and the notch. Now as you can see here, we do have a water drop notch for the front facing camera. Not the best looking thing on a phone, but you actually can hide it, which I personally think is pretty cool. So to get to these options, go to Settings. From here, go to Display. And go to status bar and notch. So first we got some options for the status bar. By default, it's not going to show your network speed, but you can turn it on. Now I don't really think it's that useful, but it is kind of a cool thing if you want to see it. We also got the battery percentage again, so another place you can change that. And then we got the notification icon folder. Now this is actually pretty cool because if you get a lot of notifications and you don't want to turn them off, sometimes they can add up on the status bar and it gets a little messy. But with this feature, it basically puts them all into one place, so you still get the notifications, but they're not all going to be separate on the status bar. And then finally we got the notch. So if we go here, there are several different appearance options for it. By default, it is going to show just like normal. You can also hide it like this. And this is basically going to keep the status bar right where it is, but still cover up the notch. And then the last option, you can move the status bar and hide the notch. And that's going to look like this. The next thing I'm going to show you is a quick way to get to your camera. Now opening your camera app on the home screen is easy enough. But what if you're doing something else on your phone and you're not actually on the home screen? So for example, if we're on Instagram, sure, you can always go to your home screen and open the camera app that way, but an easier and more convenient way to do it is simply by double pressing your power key like this, and the camera is going to open right up. So definitely a nice convenient feature to have. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to make a screen recording and some different screen recorder settings you can change. Now first things first, to actually make a screen recording, once you have it set up right, it is pretty easy, but for whatever reason, by default, it's not in the menu at all, which I think is really weird because there's no other way to access the screen recorder. Kind of reminds me of old iOS when screen recording first became a thing, and it was almost like a secret feature. But anyway, to get to the screen recorder on this phone, from this menu, you're going to go to the pencil icon, scroll down a bit, and screen recorder is right here. Press and hold and drag it onto the menu just like that. Go back, and now if we pull down the shade one more time, the screen recorder is going to be on this menu. So now of course, to create a screen recording, all you got to do is tap the icon. There's going to be a countdown, and now we're recording the screen, and you can pretty much do whatever for as long as you want. When you're done, hit stop, and it's going to be saved right to your photos. So pretty much just like a screenshot. Now that was easy enough, but there are also some settings you can change. To get to these, we're going to go to Settings. From here, go to Advanced Features, go to Screen Recorder, and we got a few different options here. So first of all, video resolution. By default, it is going to be 720p, which is the resolution of the display. But if you don't care about the quality and you want the file to be as small as possible, you can also do 480p. We also got the sound options. By default, it will record the mic, but you can also have it record device audio or mute it entirely. And then finally, by default, it will record touch interactions. So whenever you touch the screen, a little cursor is going to show up. But if you don't want it to do this, you can turn it off. So as you can see, the screen recorder is pretty easy to use, albeit a little weird to get to. And while we don't have a whole lot of options to customize here, at least this phone actually has a screen recorder, because believe it or not, there are phones that are around double this phone's price that don't have this feature. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is an alternate way to take a screenshot. Now in case you don't know, to take a screenshot with the TCL 30Z, all you got to do is press the power key and the volume down key at the same time. So like this. And you can share, delete, whatever you want to do. And while that's easy enough, there's also another way to take a screenshot, and who doesn't like to have multiple options to do something? So doing this is real easy. All you gotta do is put 3 fingers on your screen and swipe down like this. And there we go. Share, delete, whatever you want to do. And just in case you missed it, one more time. So 3 fingers on the screen, swipe down. And there we go. Now this feature is on by default, so you don't really need to do anything to enable it, but in case for whatever reason it's not on your phone, let me show you where to go to see it. So we're going to go to settings. From here, go to buttons and gestures. And from here, go to gestures. And 3-finger screenshot, as you can see right here, is enabled. And if you want to turn it off, you always can. Now there's also this other feature called 3-finger regional screenshot. So basically what this does is allows you to make a pre-cropped screenshot. It's pretty cool. So let's try that out right now. It's a little bit trickier at first, but not too bad. So we're going to go like this. And as you can see, you can crop it pretty much however you want. Now I'm going to show you some color settings for your display. Now I was honestly pretty surprised this phone actually has these, because when it comes to phones in this price range, you're rarely ever going to see anything you can do with the colors. But with TCL, seeing that they are mainly a TV company, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. Now to get to the color settings, go to settings. And then from here, you're going to want to go to a section called Next Vision. So as you can see, we got several different options here. The first one is called Image Enhancement, and this is basically like HDR for your display. So with this on, it's going to improve the contrast and the overall sharpness of your details. There's also Video Enhancement, which is basically the same thing as Image Enhancement but for videos. And then Game Enhancement, again, it's a pretty similar concept. Now keep in mind, this is not going to look like night and day. These differences are pretty subtle because remember, after all, this is a really basic display. And despite it being pretty good for what it is, it can only really do so much. So don't expect these features to suddenly turn it into a flagship level experience. Now below this, we got a few other things. First of all, we got reading mode, and essentially this is going to optimize your display for reading, basically making text on the screen easier to see, while also making the light itself a little bit easier on your eyes. Eye comfort mode is pretty much the same idea. It's going to tint your screen in an amber color, and this is going to filter out blue light and stuff like that. Sunlight display mode, this is on by default. And then finally, we can change the color mode and temperature. So as you can see here, the default color mode is vivid, and I personally like to leave it like that. I think it's the best experience overall. But you can also change it to natural. And as the name suggests, this is going to make the colors a little bit more natural looking. And you can also do advanced if you want to really customize it. So while there really aren't a ton of things you can do when it comes to color, I was pleasantly surprised to see that we at least have those options, because very few phones in this price range are going to have anything like that. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is a feature called adaptive brightness. What this is going to do is adjust the brightness of your display based on your environment. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, it's going to brighten your display quite a bit to make it easier to see. But if you're in a darker room, it's going to dim it because you don't need it to be that bright. This is going to help make it easier on your eyes and also save a little battery as well. So to get to this feature, we're going to go to settings. From here, go to display. And adaptive brightness is right here. So if we turn it on, as you can see, the display is dimming quite a bit, but it still is pretty easy to see. Now this feature is cool and all, but it's not for everyone. Some people just like to keep it at 100% brightness at all times, but all the same, if you haven't already, I do recommend giving this feature a try, because it's really just going to be up to personal preference, and who knows, you might end up liking it. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to turn off your Google feed. In case you don't know what it is, the Google feed is basically this thing right here. Now I personally think this thing is kind of useless and annoying because the only thing I ever do is accidentally swipe onto it. But then again, some people might actually like it, so it really depends on your personal preference. But that being said, if you do want to turn it off, it's not too hard, but it is in a really specific spot. So let me show you how to do it. So what you're going to want to do is go to settings. From here, go to home screen and lock screen. From here, go to home settings. And Google Feed is right here, toggle it off. And now if we go back to the home screen, the Google Feed is now off. So like I said, really not hard to turn it off, but definitely has a couple different steps to it. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is a quick way to toggle between vibrate, mute, and sound. Now a lot of phones have this feature called prevent ringing, which is usually the power key and the volume up key. Now this phone doesn't have that feature, but it's actually just as easy to control your vibrate and mute. So to do this, all you got to do is pull down your shade once. And right here, as you can see, I am currently in vibrate mode. If we tap this icon, now it's going to be in mute. And if we tap it one more time, now the sound is back on. And tap it one more time, and we're back in vibrate mode. So it's as simple as that. But these were my tips and tricks for the TCL 30Z. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about the phone itself, be sure to check out my full review of it on the channel. But that's it for this video. As always, I will see you in the next one.